Okay, this is the summary from last week. Best way to do that is imagine you have um, Levushim goggles. You know, like you have goggles that you can wear, augmented reality goggles, or you can have goggles that you see infrared. I don't know if you've ever seen like infrared videos of things. Everything is completely different when you're looking at infrared light. Things that are cold are invisible, and things that are hot are very bright. You see things differently. You can have augmented reality goggles on, and you would be looking at somebody doing a mitzvah. And let's say they're speaking. Um, they're speaking. The mitzvah they're doing has to do with speaking, like learning Torah or saying Shema or Birkat Hamazon after eating, or one of those mitzvahs has to do with speaking. And with these goggles, that perhaps the way that angels would see things, you're looking at this activity. What would you be seeing? You would be seeing that this person is now enveloped within, I guess, a sort of light. Imagine the very warm, fuzzy light. It's a nice light, and they're enveloped within this light, and the light is being generated by the words that he or she is saying. And if it would be an activity, and you're watching this person doing a mitzvah, say lighting Shabbat candles, or eating matzah, or blowing a shofar, or giving somebody some tzedakah, or helping somebody out, one of those mitzvahs. And again, you would see the activity. You would see the activity as this aura of light that's enveloping the person, but not just a circle globe surrounding the person, a kind of clothing that it's fit to the size of the person. And the same thing when you would watch somebody just sitting there and thinking words of Torah, that also makes it, especially saying it out loud, there's the thoughts are now generating this clothing, this aura of clothing around the person. And the neat thing about this clothing is that they never goes away. Once you have it there, it stays with you, and even at the end of a life on this earth, you take it with you as well. So each of these clothing is permanent. It's more permanent than your body, which only lasts 120 years more, depending. But this clothing lasts forever. So that's what's happening, as we're saying, that's what's happening at each time that a person's doing this, which is why we say, from this perspective, it's not a behavior, it's not something you're doing, it's what you're enveloping yourself within, what you're investing yourself within, something that you're generating, which is clothing you at the time of the mitzvah and sticks around, stays with you from that point on. That's the first piece that we have to get. The next piece of the puzzle that we have to get now is, so what's this light made of? What is this clothing exactly? What's its material? It's not made out of polyester. What is it? It's Torah, it's mitzvahs. Well, what is that? And now comes a very crucial question. What is Torah? What is a mitzvah? That's where we're going to get to today. And you discover that we're going to turn everything upside down. Completely different understanding of what is Torah and what is a mitzvah than is generally or intuitively understood. That's what we're getting to now. So on page 86, the heading is Clothed Within God. Okay, because now these three forms of engagement provided by Torah and its mitzvahs are called clothes for the nefesh, ruach, and neshama. And the clothes are usually just an accessory. So what's important is you, and you happen to be wearing clothes. But what if somebody hands you clothes that are royal clothes? You know, all the sequins, I don't know, the diamonds, whatever. Very, very aristocratic clothes that are way beyond your social status. I'm not putting down anybody's social status here, but beyond my social status at least. Okay, and you get into these clothes, and they fit you, and you look good in them. the story with King David when he was a young man and he came uh, to the encampment of Israel and saw Goliath is insulting the Jewish people and insulting God, and he's furious about it. He's outraged about it, and so they bring him to Shaul, the king, and Shaul offers him to wear his clothing, his gear, his battle gear. And when King David puts it on and he stands up in it, people look, whoa, it fits. Not just it fits in size, it fits that all of a sudden we see a king in front of us when they looked at David. By putting on his clothing, he became elevated to a much higher status. But the reason he was able to be elevated to this high status because he had that inside himself to begin with. There was something about him that this clothing brought out that you couldn't see until then. Nobody was able to see. Even Shmuel, the prophet, came to anoint. He didn't see anything special about him. But when he put on these clothes and they fit, whoa, there's a real someone here. So you can get that type of clothes that take you up to a whole other level. But they're not really they're bringing out something about you that was not apparent until you put this clothing on. The reason I think about this, my mother, Allah Shalom, when I was young, used to give model and pose lessons at the local community center. And she would take these high school girls and show them how to dress themselves properly and how to walk on the stage wearing these clothes. And you would see girls who wear schleppers all of a sudden look very, very, how do you say, dignified, elegant, just by the way they carry the clothes and wear the clothes. So clothes do have an amazing effect on a person. But if it's not there inside the person to begin with, the clothes won't have that effect. And it was these clothes that you're wearing of Torah and its mitzvahs. They're called clothes, but they're not just accessories. That says, nevertheless, when it comes to these clothes, their quality is immeasurably higher and greater than that of your nefesh, ruach, and neshama on their own. So you're wearing clothes that are way beyond your class, not just immeasurably. It says the ain kates immeasurably beyond. So the examples I gave, I can't think of anything that's immeasurably beyond. But that's what this clothing is doing, taking a measure. They're higher and greater because they're clothing of Torah. As the Zohar tells, Torah and God are completely one. So therefore, they're way, way higher than the soul, the divine soul. Nobody has a problem. I'll say it again. They're way, way higher than the soul, than the soul, because they're Torah, and Torah and God are completely one. So therefore, they're immeasurably higher and greater than the soul. Nobody's protesting. Hold on.
Isn't the soul
following, please? Yes.
Isn't the soul part of God?
So that's what I was waiting for. Right. So Barry points it out. Barry, you can't show your beautiful Yiddish upon him there. I'd like to see faces. If you can't, you can't. Okay, fine. I'll just hear your voice then. Oh, there he is. I saw him for a flash, just for a moment. Wow. It's so inspiring. So Barry's pointing out, how can you say they're greater because they're one with God? The soul also is one with God. We said it's a chelik elokah mimal. It's a piece of God, a chunk of God. It's not literally, of course, but that's what it is. How can you say, but the Torah is one with God? Why? So, yeah, the answer really has to do with chapter 3, where we talked about the soul as it, well, in the end of chapter 2 and in chapter 3, the soul descends. It becomes a particular soul of a particular person, and it has its intellect and its emotions. And now that's no longer the same union with God. It's no longer just a chunk. It's its own person That's the thing about the soul, that she becomes her own person, even as she remains completely connected, because she starts off one with God, and she retains that connection all the way along. But she has become a particular soul of a particular person, like of you or whoever it is. So now she's limited. She has to work with this gray matter inside your skull and a heart within in your chest, and a human person. That makes her much more limited. Whereas Torah is just coming straight. It's like light coming from God, and retains that oneness all the way along completely. It doesn't descend in the same way as the soul. So the soul is now a particular soul, whereas the Torah, it's just God speaking. That's all. So it's immeasurably higher in that sense, whereas the soul has been diminished, particularized. So, Barry, does that answer your very smart, insightful question?
I think so, yes.
Okay, but as a Jew, you should never be satisfied. I'm sure you'll come back later and have more issues with it, because it's not so simple. But let's talk about now what Torah is. So it says the Zohar says that Torah and God are one. They're one thing. What does that mean, that they're one thing? So he explains, why are they one? He explains, because Torah is not just profound wisdom, it is God's wisdom and desire. And God himself at his essence is entirely one. For he is the knower, he is the mind that knows, and he is the knowledge that's noticed, quoted above from Rambam. Okay, so it's few cryptic lines, but there's a huge amount contained over here. We're saying that Torah and God are one, because what is Torah? God's wisdom and desire. Two things, wisdom and desire. And then we point out that God himself at his essence is entirely one. So there's so much buried in here. First of all, okay, let's talk about Torah is God's, let's start with desire. Why should God desire anything? He doesn't need anything. He's not lacking anything. Well, why should he want anything? How does he have any wants, any desires? Like, he
It's
doesn't get
part of
hungry.
it.
What? Sorry?
It's part of his creative process for him to. That's how a creative process begins. That he wants something in his
But
mind,
why
so to
would he want
speak.
anything? Why would he want anything to begin with? If nothing, if everything's okay, everything's fine. So why want anything? And when there's nothing, everything is fine. There's no problems. Everything's good. So right away, just from the question, you don't have to answer the question, because it doesn't really have an answer. You're just pointing out that desire, when you're talking about God's desire, is something completely different than our desire. If I see a cookie and I want the cookie, why do I want? Where is that desire coming from? It's coming both from me and from the fact that there's a cookie there, and not really from me. It's coming from my memories of childhood, of nice cookies and motherly love, and my hunger from having worked out that day, all sorts of origins of that desire. The desire is a kind of an interaction between me and the cookie, and really the entire universe, everything that has an effect on me and that cookie. It's not coming from me alone. I can't really say that this desire is 100% my desire. It's a desire that's grown within me and come from out of many circumstances. It's not completely me. And if I could take that desire for that cookie and hand it over to you, you would not have me. If I say, who am I? I am the person that wants that cookie. No. In fact, there's no desire I can tell you about that defines me and me alone, because it's all a composite of many different experiences throughout life. And it all has to do with an interaction between me and something else. So my desire is not one with me. And all the more so when it comes to wisdom, intelligence. Intelligence is made of many things that I learned as a child and older, and experiences through life, and that's my intelligence. My intelligence doesn't originate entirely within me. So if you have my intelligence, you don't have me. Generally, we say, if you want to really know a person, you have to know, what does that person want? What does that person truly desire? Then you know that person. Who was it? I heard the Mendel Fotterfast said he heard two drunken men in a bar in Kretschmer in Russia. They're talking to each other, and I'm your good friend, Stefan says. Stefan says, you're not my good friend. Yeah, no, I love you. You're my best friend. You don't love me. You don't like me. You don't know who I am. Says, why do you say that, Stefan? Stefan says, because if you really liked me, if you really loved me, you would know what I desire. So that's getting very close to knowing who a person is, to know what it is in life that they're looking for, to really feel that. But I'm saying that even when you have that, which is as close as we can get to knowing a person, then you still don't have the person himself. Oh, I remember this. I'm sitting in the days when they had taxis in somewhere in Queens, trying to get to LaGuardia Airport on time for my ride. And my driver has a Middle Eastern accent, let's put it that way. And he sees it starts raining. He says, you're not going to make your plane on time. And then he gets on his phone and he's talking to his wife. And he says, I'm going to be home late for dinner. Make sure there's dinner ready when I'm there. I'm sorry, I can't do the Middle Eastern accent, but it was good. And then he says, and I'm not hearing what she's saying, of course. And he says, what do you mean, what do I want for dinner? You are my wife. You have to know what I want for dinner. And he's listening and says, for this I gave your father a herd of sheep and 2 camels. That you should ask, what do I want for dinner? You are my wife. I don't know what I want. You know what I want for dinner. Okay. So that's very close to getting known, but you don't have the person, even there. And then I don't have the person. However, when God desires something, it's not because he's lacking anything. It's not because this thing is going to give him something. It's not due to some childhood experience or trauma. It's just he decided to want this thing. It's coming entirely from him. It has no other origin, because there is no other origin other than him. So you imagine, like, here's the entire universe, and each thing in the universe wants something. The sun wants to shine, otherwise why would it be shining? And the plants want to grow. Everything is wanting something, but none of them desire alone. Each thing in the universe desires together with everything else in the universe, because the desire of each thing affects the desire of every other thing. They're all affected by one another. But God is the one that, the unification of all of them. Everything is a singularity, is a single whole. And there's just one desire. And why is this desire? Not because of anything. It doesn't come from it, just comes from him alone. He has decided to desire. Why? If there would be a why, it means it wouldn't be absolute, undiluted desire. It has to be without any why at all. And that means it's entirely him. So when you have his desire, you have him, all of him, 100%. When you know what God truly desires, you're thinking about that, and especially if you are desiring the same thing, You don't just have some information about him. You have him. That's the distinction.
You have him, but do you know him? You know, God's desire is for us to do mitzvot. That's his desire, I understand. You know, if we do mitzvot, we know that he wants it, so do we know him?
So that's, he says, also it's God's Torah, is God's wisdom. So he gave it to us that we could grasp this and understand it. And in grasping and understanding, we're grasping his wisdom, which means we're grasping him. This is how he's adding on that God himself in his essence is entirely one. For he is the knower, he is the mind. So he and his wisdom are one. He and his, especially his desire, are one. It's not like with us that we're a composite of many things. There's me, and there's my mind, and there's things that I want, and there's things that I feel, and they're all in conflict with each other, all different things. With him, it's all one. So if you have his wisdom, you have him. If you have his desire, you have him, 100%. So do you understand him? You're understanding what he is understanding. You're wanting what he wants. You're thinking what he is thinking. And in that way you went with him. Doesn't mean that I now know what God is. That's not what it means. You have a chunk of him, so to speak, and you're there with him. So we're going to elaborate more on this as we go along. So the first issue is, if we're going to say, well, the Torah then is God's wisdom. That's what it is. I got a big problem. I start learning Torah. What does Torah say? I am God. I took you out of the land of Egypt. Don't have any other gods. Okay, fine, whatever. Don't take my name in vain. You know, you can't make a false oath. Keep Shabbat. Honor your mother and father. Okay, fine. Don't be a false witness. Don't steal. Don't kill. Tell me, is this divine wisdom? Don't steal. I know that, yeah. Well, yeah, but I want to tell you that if somebody steals and we catch him, he has to give back. That's what she stole. Okay, that's divine wisdom. Really? I could have come up with that too. You know, everybody seems to private property. Yeah, seems it's an idea, but is that divine wisdom? In general, looking at the Torah, you know, you're going to expect divine wisdom. What's it going to be all about? It's going to be how to create worlds, how to create consciousness, that would be okay, divine wisdom. But don't steal property rights, damage the laws. How's that divine wisdom? Look in the Torah. It's a nice story about a man named Abraham and his wife Sarah. Little kids can read that. The little kid can read it. How is it divine wisdom? What's going on over here? So in what way is this divine wisdom? I'm sure some of you have asked this question before. I mean, or maybe you feel like it's one of those forbidden questions you're not supposed to have. But there are no forbidden questions. It should be an obvious question. I'm going to sit down with the rabbi and I'm going to learn laws of Torah. And he teaches me that when you put on your shoes, you should tie your left shoelaces before your right shoelaces. This is divine wisdom. How to dress properly. It's not what I would have expected in divine wisdom. Now maybe things in Kabbalah, that's my idea of divine wisdom. Yeah, but main learning that we learn is halacha and Talmud and Rashi on the Chumash. You know, in what way is that divine wisdom? So before we read this inside, let me give an explanation like this. Generally, we think of wisdom as in terms of problem solving. Like there's a situation, and what are we going to do about it? You know, Two people are having a dispute. You have to have wisdom to settle the dispute. Or you have a whole big broken world over here. We need some good laws, some good rules for people to keep, that people will be able to keep, and you convince them to keep them, so that the world's not so broken anymore. There's always that we think of wisdom as circumstantial, based on circumstances, just like we think of desires. There's something there. Do you desire it or not desire it? But you can't have circumstantial wisdom or circumstantial desire when you're talking about God, because when he starts off, there isn't anything there at all. There's no circumstances. He's not trying to solve a problem. Just like he's desiring when nothing exists, he's desiring what should exist. Now, in his wisdom, he's deciding, well, how should it be? I decided I wanted a world. How is this world going to work? What's it going to be like? He can stay, and he starts from scratch. He's not solving any problems with his wisdom. On the contrary, he's creating them. With his wisdom, he creates a world which is a big problem. When God says, don't steal, he decides, I want a world where there's going to be a mitzvah of don't steal. Okay, in order to be no stealing, there have to be people, they have to have property, they have to be amenable to the idea of private property and ready to accept it. And then there have to be people who will not be good and take other people's property and try to keep it for themselves. And now we can have a rule, don't steal. There was no problem to begin with. God created a problem so that there could be a mitzvah of don't steal. And the same thing with every other mitzvah. There's going to be a mitzvah of don't worship idols. Okay, that means there have to be idols. There's going to be a mitzvah, don't eat pork. Okay, so I'm going to have pigs there. The pig is defined by the mitzvah. Why is there a pig in the world? Because God had this mitzvah of don't eat pork, so therefore there has to be pork there. But if he never would have decided don't eat pork, there would not be any pork in the world. It exists there only because he decided, in Torah, he desired it. That's all. So you see, it's not just different, but opposites, the way our intellect works and the way his intellect works. We start off with a situation, we start solving the situation. He starts with nothing, and according to this desire, creates a whole situation, which now there's problems, and here's how you deal with it. It's a completely different type of intellect. So but why would he be doing this, is the question. Why would he be investing his wisdom in petty matters of don't steal, don't kill, honor your mother and father? Why not keep it up there as infinite? So that's what he's going to explain now. This header, the infinite and accessible God. So it's infinite and accessible. It says, true, God is called the infinite, Ein Sof. Ein Sof, infinite here, doesn't mean an extension that he goes on and on and on. Infinite means he could do anything and he could have anything, and there are no limitations. He has no boundaries, no borders. He could decide to want whatever he wants. He could decide to think about whatever he thinks. And all possibilities are open for him. And that's unfathomable, because there's no definition left. Anything could be. Anything could be. So you can't understand that. His greatness is unfathomable. No thought can grasp anything about him. Okay? Now, if we stop right there, no thought can grasp anything about him, we got a big problem. Wait, the Torah is his wisdom, and no thought can grasp it. Therefore, we shouldn't be able to grasp Torah. This is the same thing is true of his will and his wisdom. Just like you can't grasp him, you can't grasp his will and wisdom. It's written, there are no means to understand him. It's also written, if you seek to fathom God, will you achieve it? And it's written, for my thoughts are not your thoughts. Lo machshotai machshotechem. which doesn't just mean I think about different things than you, or I'm a lot smarter than you. And what it means is that if human thoughts are considered to be intelligence, then God's thoughts are not in the realm of intelligence. And if God's thoughts are considered to be intelligence, then human thoughts have nothing to do with intelligence. These are two completely different categories altogether. And like I said, we think of things that exist, and how would we put them together? And I can imagine a bird, I can imagine a horse, so maybe I can imagine a flying horse, or a metal bird that flies in the air. I could do all those things, put things together, all from things that I've seen before. But if you would ask me, okay, imagine a world where there's no gravity and no electricity, and instead there's something else, other forces. I can't do that. Okay, try imagining this. This world you're in, it's basically time and space. Instead of time and space, can you think of a world that's different than that, has something instead of time and space? I'm lost. I mean, even just to imagine a color I've never seen, I can't do that. Because my mind is not creating anything. It's thinking of things that I've already seen. Whereas God's mind is, to begin with, I think I'll have something called time. It's going to be time. I'm going to have space out of nowhere. It's a completely different type of thoughts, completely different type of thinking than what we're talking about here. So here we've got an ungraspable God, and his thoughts are totally beyond, and we're supposed to be thinking them. So what does he do? So we answer what he does. Let me read the context words that we put in it on page 88. That's where we're at now, 88. This presents a quandary. If God provides you with authentic, infinite wisdom, should be impossible for you to grasp. And if God provides you wisdom that you can grasp, it must be that it's not his authentic, infinite wisdom. Yet nonetheless, he has provided you that infinite wisdom, and you're grasping it every time you learn Torah. So how is that possible? So it's in reference to this paradox that our sages said, in that very place where you find God's greatness, there you will find his humility descending to the lowest places. See the line? His greatness, the same place where you find his greatness, there you find that he's able to descend to the lowest places and bring things down, which is what he did here. His greatness is in how he's able to compress his greatness into something slower, something lower, further down. Like an example, you have a teacher who's able to teach things to the professor. So he's able to teach, but he doesn't want to deal with undergrad students. He only wants to deal with his graduate students because they can understand what he's talking about. And even them, most of the time, don't understand what he's talking about, but they're able to regurgitate it so they can get their master's or doctorate. You have another professor who's good at bringing it down to the level of undergrad students. There's certain professors that were great people. They're able to teach an undergrad class, and they were very good at it. Certain great scientists, they were good at bringing it down. And some are so good that they can take the most brilliant ideas and explain them in a secondary school institution. Just a 15-year-olds. But it takes an absolute amazing genius to explain the deepest ideas in preschool. That's true greatness. To be able to take a great idea, somebody like Dr. Seuss, great ideas, and bring them all the way down. This is a story, not a story, like a parable. Parable. You walk into an art gallery, and magnificent portraits, paintings on the wall, and there, in one room, are 3 people sitting on a bench. They're all staring at the same portrait. One of them is so delighted, so happy. And the other guy next to him is saying, ah, like this, ah. And the third guy is sitting there just totally mesmerized, not moving. Mesmerized. So you go to the first guy and you say, hey, what are you so excited about? And he says, wow, look at this. The portrait, it's so beautiful. The trees, the birds, the people, everything's so beautifully done. It's so amazing. Look at that bird on the tree. Oh, it's so gorgeous. So he asks the next guy, oh, why are you just so dismissive? Don't you, isn't there pretty birds and trees and everything? Ah, he says, I know the artist. The artist is a brilliant thinker. He's a very great man. He's a philosopher. He's so deep. He has so much experience in life. And hey, look, this is nothing. A bird on a tree, nothing. What's so great about it? Okay, so listen, there, he has a good point. You go to the next guy who's just mesmerized. Hey, excuse me. You can't get his attention. Finally, he comes out of it and says, what are you so mesmerized about? Don't you know the artist is a great man and this is like nothing for such a great artist to paint such? Says, I also know the artist. I know how deep he is. I know him intimately well. And it amazes me how he could bring all of his experience and deep wisdom into such a simple painting. So that is the true greatness, the true infiniteness is that you're able to be anywhere and bring it into anything, to anybody. That's true greatness. And that's what happens here. Torah is not about God showing off to, look how bright I am. You cannot understand me. No, Torah is God saying to us, listen, I want to bring myself to you, that you will be able to have me. So I'm going to take my infinite desire and wisdom, I'm going to compress it into a finite number, 630 mitzvahs of the Torah, and all the rules of each of those mitzvahs, the combination of the letters that make up the Torah and the Nevi'im, Kesuvim, and in all the interpretations and all the anecdotes, all the parables and all the mitzvahs, and then you'll be able, everybody will have something in there that they'll be able to grasp and really get into. It'll be fascinating for them. And then each one of you will be grasping me. Like a teacher, like giving each child the analogy, the parable, the story, whatever it is, the way of understanding that that child needs or that student needs. But all of the wisdom is there within each one. Nobody's yelling back at me or anything over here. I don't know. I can see some images of people, but I don't know if I'm communicating or not communicating. I need some feedback. Say something, please. Is it? Are you following? Is it making sense? Can somebody paraphrase for me? Now, according to this, what is Torah? And what is Torah? And why does Torah come in these simple rules of what do you do if somebody stole? Or how do you eat a matzah? Or how do you tie your shoelaces? Or simple stories. Why? What is Torah and why does it come in such mundane, how do you say, mundane items, activities? Somebody paraphrase. Sean, Shlomo, you're good at paraphrasing. You did it last week. Try again this week. No? We can try Larry. Larry, you up to this? Or Barry? Larry or Barry? Whoever, anybody.
Torah is
What is Torah?
Torah is God's wisdom. And that's what he wants us to do, but we can't understand his wisdom at his level. So he breaks it down into smaller pieces like the 613 mitzvot.
Okay, it was going great until you said breaks it down. Because that would sound to me like I have to have all the pieces.
It breaks it down for us. We do it. We can't have, I can't have all the pieces. I don't have God's wisdom.
But you see what you're saying, Barry? If he breaks it down, that means if this mitzvah has one piece, this mitzvah has another piece, another mitzvah has another piece. I have to have all the pieces.
Yeah.
But it's not breaking down. Each mitzvah has everything. Each halacha has everything. Each story has everything. All of him is compressed into this one little story or one little halacha. All of him. In every mitzvah that a Jew has, he has all of God. In every piece of Torah you learn, you have all of him.
Yeah, it's like the Torah is one big zip file. And if you've got the unzip thing on your computer, you can do it. But I can't unzip every single thought of God, or every thought, every single item that God gives us to think about. I don't know how to unzip it. I don't have the wisdom to do that. That's what I meant by breaking down.
Ah, okay. So what if I'm just learning the halacha, or learning the story in Torah, or doing a certain mitzvah, and I don't have the code for unzipping it, decompressing it. I'm just doing it. Do I have God or I don't have God?
Your way of knowing God.
It's you're knowing what God is knowing, and He and His knowledge are one. So you have Him. You're doing what is His desire, and His desire and Him are one. So you have Him. So in any mitzvah, in anything that you do, even if you don't understand it, you have Him 100%. Why there's by the way, there's halachic import of this, because let's say you're busy with a mitzvah. Classic example. It's Sukkot. Everybody's eating in the sukkah. You also, it's a mitzvah, eat in the sukkah. Big mitzvah comes around only once a year. But there's somebody that can't go into the mitzvah because they have a cold or something, and they want you to stay there with them because they don't want to be lonely. That's a mitzvah. You now no longer have the obligation to sit in the sukkah. Why? Because you're occupied in another mitzvah. We say, but the sukkah mitzvah comes around only once a year. I want to be there. It's the first night of Sukkot. Yeah, but you're occupied in another mitzvah right now. And so you don't do that mitzvah. It's like that mitzvah doesn't exist for you right now. It doesn't exist. Even if, say, there's a mitzvah every morning, you need to say the Shema. Well, let's say at that point when you need to say the Shema, you're occupied in some other mitzvah of some other sort, whatever it is. And what do? Well, you don't interrupt. Once you're doing one mitzvah, you don't do another mitzvah. Why? Because if the mitzvahs would each be a piece of the puzzle, then you would say, I need to get this piece, I need to get that piece, I need to get all the different pieces. But no. Each mitzvah is the entire thing. Each mitzvah is God, all of Him. And it's just each mitzvah is God from a different perspective, a different facet. But it's all of Him from this different perspective. So when you're doing this one mitzvah, you don't have to do any other mitzvah because you have every other mitzvah there in this mitzvah. So yes, so like Barry was saying, it's God taking His desire and wisdom and making it accessible to us, but not in little chunks. He's compressing all of Himself into each one of them. So each one of them is all of Him.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
is it kind of like similar to the Sephirot where there's like a stepping down? So, or down is probably a pejorative word, but there's like, it's still, or maybe the levels of our soul. I mean, the lowest level of our soul is still the undivided soul. It's just at a level that's closer to what we can access in our physical world. So it's kind of like the mitzvahs are kind of like it's like God allowing His essence to come down to us in a way that we can connect to in this world. Almost like I saw a quote in here about God's humility. Maybe it's like, God's making himself, he's showing his humility in order that we can access it in this world.
Right. So exactly. So the word there, the best word I could think of is compression. In the original Hebrew, it's tzimtzum. So the why compression is good is because there's no loss there. Everything is there. It's like when I was a student, we had to deal with microfiche, microfilm. You had to get the document, some historical document, take it up off the shelf and put it under microfilm, and everything was there. Everything is there, but you need a special device to see it. So now when we want to send big files over the internet, we compress them. And you can compress them. There's two different ways. There can be lossy compression, where there's data that's deemed not so important, it gets lost. Or you have lossless compression. Everything is there. Everything is there. Nothing is lost. But you need tools to expand it. So here in this symptom, there's no loss. Later, we'll find about another type of symptom where there is loss. Here, there's no loss. Well, the difference would be, let's say I took this great professor. I asked him to please give the grade 6 teacher is missing. Can you come teach 6th grade to just teach them math, basic math. She's just teaching the basic math, that's all. Or you take this professor and you bring him to the class, and we want you to explain like the real mysteries of mathematics to 6th grade. I know they did this in one county in California one year. They tried this. So what will happen if instead of bringing math teachers to the class, we bring mathematicians to the class? And somebody who witnessed it told me it was an amazing experience to see what a mathematician does in a high school class. And he starts explaining, so what's the square root of -2? And somebody says, I think it's this. Oh, now math teacher would say that's wrong. He says, that would be interesting. What would happen to mathematics if your answer was correct? And starts throwing things in the book, experimenting with this and try that. So the students get to experience what it's to be a real mathematician. In truth, that's what really actually happens in education. We have this myth about education, that education is the transmission of ideas, which is totally messed up. Education is an interaction between an adult and a child, a growth interaction. The child is not so much listening to what the adult is saying as the child is learning to emulate the adult and be like an adult. How does the adult think? How does the adult talk? That's the true education going on. So the good teacher is the teacher who's able to present himself or herself to the child in a way that the child can grow from that experience. So this compressing yourself, that's what a teacher does. Compresses himself into little packages that the students can swallow and digest and become, after many years, like the teacher. So God is compressing his desire and wisdom into these mitzvahs. And not just the mitzvahs, the rules for the mitzvahs. Every halacha that you learn is a compression of God's will. Or it's just the combinations of letters. You're learning to read from the Torah, how to read it properly, that combination of letters, that God has compressed himself into that. Or you have all the interpretations. You're learning Rashi, you're learning Ramban, you're learning these interpretations of these things. Or you're learning just anecdotes. You're learning stories, midrashim. That's a nice story. It's God compressed in there. Well, why is it such a silly little story? It's not a silly little story. It's a story that's God telling you a story in a way that now a 5-year-old can grasp him, maybe a 4-year-old. Amazing. So, and not just, well, if I understand the depths of this story, then I'll have divine wisdom. if you're capable of understanding the depths of the story, yes, you must do that. But let's say you're just a little kid, and for you, this is a story about there were two brothers. There was Yaakov and Esav, and one guy was hairy, and one guy was like sitting and learning, and they had these quarrels, and that takes it as a story like that. For that child, this is divine wisdom. But for somebody else, no, you're on a different level. You have to learn a story at this level for it to be divine wisdom. And another person has to learn on a completely higher level. And wherever you're at, the Torah is coming to you in that place for you to have divine wisdom. Oh, you are into tort law. We have civil law over here in Torah about damages and so on. You learn that. Oh, you're into mystical things. We have Kabbalah for you to learn it. You're into stories. Here we have stories. In each one, God is giving you your particular package of Him that you can grasp it. To me, this is like just amazing. Just amazing. So, for a wild example, you learn with a child, you're learning about the Exodus and the miracles in Egypt. And it says there that God smote the Egyptians with his right hand, with an outstretched arm. What does the small child imagine? Imagine a big hand coming out of heaven and whacking the Egyptians. Okay, tell the child not it doesn't really mean a hand. It means that he's mighty and strong and so on. No matter what you say, to the child, God has a big hand. That's it. The child lives in a very concrete world. And that's what it is. I don't even need to say concrete world. In the child's world, there's no distinction between something that's spiritual and something that's physical and so on. So for the child, that big hand is Torah. And the child's grasp of that story, imagining a big hand coming out of heaven, that's perfectly Torah. When the child grows up and is capable of some degree of abstraction, that idea of a hand coming out of the heavens, that would be heresy. God doesn't have a body, he doesn't have a hand. It's the opposite of Torah now. Yeah, but when I was a child, it was okay. Yeah, because as a child, that's how God comes to you. He comes into your world, and in your world, that's how you grasp things. And so therefore, that's how he comes to you. But now you're in a different world. Now you're 12 years old. Now you have to understand things differently. God comes to you in a different way, at a different level of understanding. But to each one, he comes to us at our level of understanding, in our way, and the things that will get one person gets excited by one thing, another person by another. Each thing, for every person, there's something in the Torah that, wow, this is what blows you away. This is what you really get into it. And that's God coming to you for you in your particular package, your particular way.
So Tzvi, so just one, there are some mitzvahs that we don't know the reason for the mitzvahs. We actually even have a name for that. So on that one,
most mitzvahs, all the mitzvahs, in truth, we don't know the reason.
correct.
There's
So
no
he's not
mitzvah
trying
that
to
we really
explain.
know the real reason, because there is no reason. God decided to desire this. So when on the contrary, if you have a reason for the mitzvah, you know you don't have the real mitzvah. Because the real mitzvah is it's just God desired.
No,
And
I
I
understand the desire
understand why
part.
God doesn't want me to steal, because then there would be all sorts of problems in the world. I shouldn't steal. Other people steal from me. Okay, so I won't do that. Yeah, but why did God create a world where there could be stealing? Why did he do it that way? We don't know.
Yeah, no, I understand, but I just wanted to, I guess, coming back to you that God is explaining at our level. It's not the case for everything. Definitely not the case for a lot of his desires.
Say again, explain again.
God is saying, I want you to do this because I want you to do this.
Mm-hmm.
There's no level of explanation here. Not coming to our level to explain it. He's just saying, that's what I want.
Yeah, okay. So he also says, and I want you to understand and understand as much as you can understand. But really, the real reason I desire this mitzvah is because I desire that you and I should commune with each other.
Right. So the point, I understand that, using the word understand, I guess. I understand that, but part of that understanding is it's not for everything that he is looking for us to understand.
He wants us to understand as much as we can. Why? Because that way there's more of us involved in it.
Right.
If you're capable of understanding and you're not, there's a part of you that's not involved in this mitzvah. But let's say you're not a person who's capable of understanding things. You're just a simple person. You do it because that's what you're supposed to do. Okay, if that's who you are, that's you have him. Now, for example, one person can be learning just Kitzur, Shulchan Aruch, basic laws, and so on. He's learning that and he's totally into it. Another person, for them to be just learning Kitzur, Shulchan Aruch, they're not totally engaged. They need something much, much deeper, much more complex. You need 100% engagement. And that's how Torah is designed by God, so that each person can have their 100% engagement at each level. But because, like I said, the basic desire is I want you to commune with me and me to commune with you. So therefore, I made these mitzvahs. And the mitzvahs are just this way for us to commune with one another. You have me and I have you. We're together in this. That's the basic reason for the mitzvah. And that's why a Jew does a mitzvah, because that way I'm connected to God.
Okay.
And that's the basic reason for everything. As long as you got that, you have all the reasoning that you need. You can stop there. God willing, next week, which will, I hope, be live in person, we're going to get to the waterfall part of how it all comes down into the Torah and how this takes you beyond heaven, and to compare Torah, the difference between Torah as water and Torah as light, two different ways of understanding Torah. Willing, next week, if you can make it in person, we're glad to see you there. And in the meantime, take a look. Go ahead and read what's coming up in the chapter. Look forward to seeing everybody next week.
Thank you very much. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Shukra. Thank you.